don't approach it. Don't think of it as networking. Just get out there and just meet people.
But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah. But they just don't want to use the word.
But there's a different approach. Well, I've seen it happen with some
business people use it.
Exactly.
Business people, we're going out that network.
Exactly. Well, you come out, it's the thing of, and I'm sure this has happened to probably both of you, where somebody comes to you, is like, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I've done this, this, and this, and they lead with their resume.
Yeah. Well, that's not good networking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they're kind of told that that's what you have to do. No, that's
for speed dating. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But the main thing is to find a commonality with the person and find out what interests them.
You know, despite your success in all this, Rich, I'm gonna challenge you on that.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna say that it's actually finding what problem do you solve.
But that's more of a hard promosexual pitch.
No, it's basically,
like, what's your problem, and I can solve it.
Well, not only that, it's what's your problem? I want to listen, and I want to find out what is the biggest thing you're dealing with, and if it's something that I can accommodate, or I know somebody that could accommodate it. I just want to be a resource for you. How can I help you out?
Being a connector.
This is the Rich Redmond Show.
What's up, folks? Yep, it's that time. It's time for another exciting episode of The Rich Redmond Show, where we talk about all things like music, motivation, and success. A lot of drummers on this show. Jim McCarthy and I are celebrating over 200 episodes. It's a major accomplishment. But today, we've got a bass player. And now, bass players are a drummer's best friend. And this guy is a best friend. It's going to be so great to talk to him. It's long overdue. It's like herding cats, trying to get musicians to drive to Spring Hill to do this thing. So there's a lot of rescheduling, especially if they're busy and they're popular, like today's guest, Jim.
Before we go too far, what are you wearing?
It's a little forward thinking and a little crazy. This is today's guest knows we both have an affinity for the designer John Varvatos, just because everything that he designs, it fits the human body and it complements the human body, and you feel so good in it and you walk a foot taller. It's a little crazy, and this is the first public appearance of this crazy post-apocalyptic olive sweater.
It looks like it was attacked by a string trimmer.
I know, it's a little crazy, but it was on sale, and that's the key to wearing John Varvatos, is that you have to wait till the sale.
It's like you've almost got like a ghillie suit on. You know what those are?
Not Fat Ghillie.
No, not Fat Ghillie. Not me. The ghillie suits that like the snipers and hunters wear, and they blend into the the forage.
Is it complimentary? Does it look good in it?
It's interesting.
Okay, it's interesting.
Is that a new shirt?
That's Jim and I's thing. If he buys a new shirt, I'm like, oh, is that a new shirt?
It means that Rich doesn't like it.
No, but Jim is on a health and fitness journey for his 50th birthday that's coming up.
I was going to say for your 50th time.
No. And it's going to be great because the funny thing is that when you get your new bod, you're just going to want to go buy a new wardrobe. It's going to be great.
And who, John Barbados, I should go for? Or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get a lot of this stuff on Amazon, especially his like graphic tees and stuff. Yeah. You just wait till they're on sale.
I go through the very exclusive Kohl's and get really good. Or Tractor Supply.
Silent H on the Kohl's. Yeah. Right. Also a Nordstrom rack is good. You can get some good stuff.
What's really stylish? What? Carhartt.
It's all the kids are doing it.
That's right.
Yeah. Today's guest, I mean, this is such
he let's us preface on the previous episode, he kind of crashed it.
Well, yeah, he was.
And it was cool.
It was totally cool.
I love it.
It's the first time that it's ever happened on the history of our show. But I played a lot of music over the years with this gentleman. He's a multifaceted bassist, great musician, originally hailing from Sebring, Florida, calling Nashville home, just like me, 27 years. And he's all over the place. He plays upright. He plays electric. He plays fretless. He does the whole thing. You want pedals? He's got pedals. You want straight into the amp? He'll do straight into the amp. But he's been on soundtracks for television shows like Roswell, Smallville, King of the Hill. He's been on film score soundtracks like SWAT and American Wedding. He's played on video games like Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit 2, and Project Gotham Racing. And then look at this. Look at these artists he's worked with. Bailey Zimmerman, Michael Martin Murphey. We're talking John Party, Brett Eldredge, Leanne Womack, Jody Messina, Ty Herndon, Lee Greenwood, Trace Atkins, Jamie O'Neill, Jimmy Wayne, Lindsay L., Pam Tillis, Gavin DeGraw, Tom Kiefer of Cinderella. He's been out with the Guest Who. He's played with Johnny Highland. He's worked with Cowboy Troy, Colt Ford, and if he will say yes to a session. We've done a lot of times. My friend, Luis Espaillat. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. Thanks for that.
I mean, it just gives everyone a nice cross-section and a little bit of like, wow, look at this body of work. This guy's been in Nashville. your Nashville career is 27 years, and you do it all, man. Mm-hmm. You do it all, and you kind of have to, right?
Well, that's the thing is like, and you know this better than anybody too. It's just like we're, subcontractors for hire folks. We're not the artists in a lot of capacities.
Yeah.
And the way to this is the dream, as they say. So you have to say yes to the dream when opportunity presents itself. It's like when the door opens, you have to walk through it.
Yes.
So yeah, and honestly, it's like because you know how this goes with a lot of people where we talk about things where, well, I've reached a certain point in my career, so I can't do this lower level, lower paying, usually involves money, lower paying gig or whatever.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's like, well, why are you doing this? It's like we do it because we love it.
Yeah.
And there's many times where all of us, I know you've done it too, where it's just like, that's not even the question. It's just like, are you available for blah, blah, blah? Wow, that sounds like fun. And then you don't ask like, oh, how much does it pay? Or who else is on it or whatever. It's more about, I have an opportunity. I've never done that before and I would really like to.
Yeah.
And regardless, and the bonus is like, oh, by the way, you're getting paid. So
like a lot of time we have a day rate in mind,
sure. And we do that. Yes.
Hopefully you get to the point as a musician where, you can have some sort of a day rate, which is kind of like a model, or it's kind of like a starting point for a negotiation. But 9 times out of 10, we love music and we're going to make it work.
Of course.
The phone rings. And so speaking of which, you studied, you graduated from the Berklee College of Music, which is great because a lot of guys go there for a semester or a year and then they go like, this is great, but do I really want to spend $250,000? And then, you know what I mean? But you did it, you graduated, which means you could finish something and see it all the way through. You got tons of training, playing all sorts of different kinds of music. But we could talk about that Berklee period because, I mean, wow, it's amazing.
It's crazy because it's a girls' school.
Do you smell that? That's sarcasm.
Berklee? You mean the Berklee in California?
No. I'm being funny.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
I think I can elaborate on that. He's like, as soon as I'm like that, I was told this like literally before I even like got
I got to
there.
do this to myself.
Do it.
Nice, Jim.
I'll own it.
And the kids today won't get that reference either. Which is sad. They
That's
won't.
so true.
It's very true.
I'm so spoiled, and this is something I look to every year, and it happens so quickly. It will be at this concert again, and this December, but you tour with Brett Eldredge. And now Brett Eldredge is known as like a country pop recording artist. He's had tons of success, but he realized, oh my God, he's got a good, Frank Sinatra kind of like crooner Bublé kind of a thing. So every Christmas he's been going out and building this kind of like big band thing. So Brett Eldredge sings the classic country hits, and you're playing electric bass, upright bass. You've been touring with him for 2 years?
Well, let me preface that too. Also, I don't normally tour with him. Like he does, he's been around, and I've met him even early on in his career.
But you do the Christmas thing.
I do just the Christmas thing, yeah,
right.
And the Christmas big band thing, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it's exceptional. And we saw you at the Ryman last year, and it's a great date night. You like hooked Kara and I up, and then this year you guys were at the Bridgestone.
Yep,
wow,
amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing, and that's something that I'm grateful to be involved with that to some capacity. I can take no credit for that. That's all Brett, and good for him because he genuinely, that you can tell when you talk to him about the Christmas show and everything else, he loves it. He loves being that guy. He loves singing in that style. He's a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
And it shows because he does it well, and you've seen it. I mean, you saw us last year and this year. You can see his energy, and you can see that it's genuine. He loves what he does.
Totally.
And he still does the country thing. Actually, he just released a new country single last week.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to be kicking that off again, but that's not what I do.
Right.
I'm not involved with that side at all. It's just more of, and it goes for the same for the other musicians in the Christmas tour as well.
And your rhythm section partner is Derek Phillips on drums, and he does an amazing job.
Oh, isn't he great?
You guys are great together.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and Derek is responsible for kind of being the foot in the door for that gig for me.
Nice.
He had asked me about doing, because we had done a lot of session work together, Derek and I, and I think we've done maybe 1 or 2 live things, but not much. We primarily have seen each other in the studio.
Yeah.
And he had asked me before the pandemic, this is when Brett was starting to do the Christmas thing. And he says, hey, are you available because you play upright and this is what the gig requires? At that time, I was doing another Christmas tour or a Christmas show with Trace Adkins.
Yeah.
And that was a Celtic Christmas thing, and it was a residency here in Nashville.
Yeah.
But it was great because we had 4-string players. It was really a nice thing.
And that was with Johnny the Clock, right?
Johnny Richardson was there. And then the last time I did it, it was John Spittle.
Nice.
Wow.
So who's as well. So, and it was great. I did it 2 years for that. But then when the pandemic happened and then I parted ways with Trace, I happened to be having lunch with Derek at Sunflower Cafe in Berry Hill.
Oh yeah.
One of our typical like mid-session lunch places.
Nice vegan lunch.
Great vegan lunch. So we're sitting there and I said, hey, remember that thing you asked me about? I'm actually available this go around. That sounds like fun. And he goes like, good to know. And I'm not making this up. This is going to sound like I made it up. But 60 seconds later, Brett walks in to the restaurant.
Bam.
And literally we look at him and go like, what, are your ears burning? Or,
Yeah.
And then sure enough, like that few months later, I got the call and did it.
Nice.
And then, so that was 22. And then 23, we did it again. And 24 this year, we did it again.
Nice.
And it's been great. And the good thing about it now is that since 22, it was Brett's call to try to keep the same band. And that means the rhythm section and all 8 horn players.
Yeah.
So what you saw is exactly what you saw last year as far as the personnel goes. And everybody on that stage are session players. Like nobody's really like a touring guy per se. Like a couple of the horn players, they went out with Josh Stone and some other artists. But primarily it's session guys doing this thing.
Yeah, but that horn section is playing on a lot of big film scores.
Exactly. And constantly, like even like when we were during the Christmas tour flying back and forth, like they made sure they had the early flight because all those horn players like, man, we got to, remember last year it was, we got to go get in town to do John Wick 4 and stuff like that, So there's that. But that being said, we weren't even sure how our personalities were going to mesh. Between what we call stage right and stage left, stage right being the rhythm section and stage left being the horn players. And like Lindsay Miller, who is our guitar player in that.
She's great.
She's great. She works with the symphony all the time and everything. She knew those guys prior, and Derek did a little bit, and I knew one or two, but not really. So we're like, okay, but now we have to like be together and tour. How's this going to work? Couldn't ask for anything better. Like,
It's a bus tour, right?
No, it's primarily a fly tour.
Gotcha.
But we did bus a day or two just for logistics' sake.
So you're flying the same day of the show or the day before?
Day before, if we can help
That's
it.
so good. And you're hitting all major markets:
Yes.
New York, Chicago.
Yep.
Great. So what's your thing on the road? Like for me, I'll try to fill in some educational event or something. I'll try to get my workout. But some guys have rituals. Like some guys want to find the best certain type of food in the city. Some guys want to hit all the indie LP stores. Some people just want to visit with their homies in that city. So what's your thing that you try to do?
Well, first of all, I'll say that I truly admire what you do with that because you make the most of your time. You make sure it's like, I'm going to do a clinic. I'm going to do this. And I'm like, man, I wish I could do that.
But the food is good too.
The food is great.
Yeah.
It's my routine has always been for years, and this goes, well, dare I say decades at this point.
Yeah.
I always get outside and go for a walk. Long, I call it urban hiking. Like if it's a city, I'm going to go, like, especially New York. And that's how I learned New York was walking it and taking the subway. Yeah. Chicago, same thing. So I always walk, usually in the morning. I didn't used to be like a coffee shop guy, but now I kind of do that. So the first thing is like get up, get dressed, go to the coffee shop.
Where's my coffee?
Go have it. But then like within the coffee shop, like the person behind the counter, hey, I don't live here. Give me some recommendations for maybe a lunch later or something. Yeah. So I love doing that. If there are friends and family in town, it's always meet up with them for lunch or dinner, depending on their schedule. But that's kind of my keep myself sane routine when I used to tour a lot more frequently.
Yeah.
When I was out with the band Eve to Adam on Sony years ago, the tour manager called it. He's like, "Oh, you're going walkabout." So that's what he would tell me.
That's what he call it?
Yeah, he would see me like, him and the crew up early and they'd see me kind of like starting to walk outside. He's like, oh, Luis, you going walkabout? I'm like, yep, go walkabout. You need anything? Cool, thanks.
That's your thing.
That's my thing.
Yeah, our friend Jason Sutter used to call it the Sutter Strut. So he'd just get out and just like double time, and just walk that city and go, you do your thing, man. Go to a nice vintage clothing shop, go buy some used records, get the best cup of coffee in town, meet up with some friends. That's one thing that is so great about the road after all these decades is you kind of sort of create a kind of like a street team, like a community of people that live in every different city. And and a lot of times they'll remind you, hey, so you're going to be in town on such and such a day. You want to meet up for a coffee or whatever? I'm like, yeah. And then you put it on them. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to wake up on the bus in the parking lot of the arena. So can you come by and grab me? And then you take me to your favorite coffee shop.
Amen. Yeah, that's exactly the way to do it. And most people are very respectful of the fact, at least friends and family that I have are very respectful. Like, well, we're going to, we'll do it on your schedule. We know you're here and you're on the clock.
Yeah.
So whatever works. So they're very good about it. But then you get those people go like, they'll send you a text or an email. You were in town. Why didn't you tell me?
I hate that. Yeah.
I know. It's like, I don't have enough hours in the day to like notify everybody and look at my tours. If there was a tour schedule, Chicago, it's this, and this. New York, it's this, and this. Springfield, Illinois, it's this, and this.
And
whatever.
plus I saw your name and went, ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
You came up on my caller ID and I sent it right to voicemail.
Well,
ouch.
I will say there's this whole thing and I try not to dwell on it too much, but maybe you've experienced this as well. But, there's these after the fact, because thanks to social media, there's people that you might have gone to high school with that they weren't friends of yours or whatever, but they can find you.
But they're friends all of a sudden, aren't they?
Exactly. Hey, buddy.
That's right.
You're in town. Can I come to the show?
Can I get 7 tickets?
Yeah. And you're like, you were not nice to me.
It's like that episode where Brad Pitt guests on Friends.
Yes.
And he's all thin and sexy.
Yes.
But Jennifer Aniston was such a jerk to him.
Yeah.
Remember in high school?
Yeah.
And he's like, Rachel Green, I hate her.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she was so mean to me. But now he's like Brad Pitt and he's all gorgeous and everything. She's like, oh my God, who is that?
But the funny thing is they were dating at the time, no, aren't they?
In real life? I don't know. My God.
They did, didn't they?
They did date.
They did date. Okay, so that's very possible.
That is so cute. Can you imagine how, I don't want to say life is easy for Brad Pitt, but when you look like that, women open doors for you.
Oh, the whole world opens doors for you.
Yeah, like literally and figuratively.
Oh,
Okay, here's a good question for you guys. Of, people caliber of people that look like Brad Pitt, who do you think would be a good beer hang? I think Brad Pitt would be a good
I actually
beer hang.
think Brad Pitt would be a good hang because he genuinely, it seems like he's one of those guys, I can tell by his personality, this goes with musicians too, but really actors, and you know this, Rich, where you can tell it's like, oh, you actually like the craft. You're not in it to be just a movie star. You actually like the gig. And I think that personality makes it where I'm like, oh, we could hang.
Yeah.
One person I did get to hang with, you mentioned him earlier, and his happenstance was Billy Bob Thornton.
Nice.
And it was one of those where, like, obviously I was with Trace and the Boxmasters were opening.
Nice.
And I was like, I want to meet him, but I don't want to
be that guy.
Right. Didn't have to. He came right to me and introduced himself.
Because he's a musician as well.
And he is, but he was a super nice guy. We realized these mutual friends we had and everything else. And then he was already, by the end of the night, was telling me, he's like, oh, have you seen this funny YouTube video? Oh, dude, Google this. Check this out. You're going to love it. He
was a bass player at the wrong gig or something?
No, oh, that's funny. No, it was, what do you say? The West Virginia Ninja was the one look it up. It's this dude from West Virginia who says he's a ninja. And I found that out from Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh my God.
And now
Billy
he knows.
Bob, he's just approachable. He just seems to me like he's like an everyman.
Well, he was. And I think maybe he had to start, if we talk about the beginning of his career where he blew up like Sling Blade, that was kind of something he created. He
created the platform for himself. He was probably waiting for Hollywood to come to him. So he just said, he was really early on the scene as a content creator.
Yeah.
And he hired his friends, Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah.
The guy from Hamilton.
Yeah.
Who did he created those plays whose name I can't think of right now.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes,
and I have a tie to that as well.
Really?
Okay, yeah. Well,
you got to let us know.
Well, so.
Well, you didn't finish the question.
Sorry.
Who would you want? Sorry about it. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. Please.
Who was you?
I'll babble.
Am I being rude?
No.
Who would you want to hang with? Who's a beer hang?
I really feel like those two cats, like Brad Pitt and George Clooney, would be so approachable and such nice cats.
Clooney, really interesting.
I think Clooney. He's a bona fide global, movie star.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that if somebody like vouched for you and you got into the inner circle, he would be very curious and just fun.
I've got two.
Yeah.
RDJ and Chris Hemsworth.
Who's RDJ?
Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, duh. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd be good hangs, I think.
It's funny that you referenced two dudes from the MCU.
Yeah.
I found that kind of interesting. But I'm inclined to agree with you. Definitely an RDJ for sure.
He'd be fun.
I think everything I've seen of him that is not, I remember seeing a thing, what was it? It was a tour of his home with his wife.
Yeah.
And it was just a few years ago, but it was like, I can't remember what
it's like a farm.
Windmill looking thing. But it was on one of those YouTube channels like American Homes or whatever.
Yeah.
And his personality, this is, come in, check out my living room. And his wife's there too or whatever. And that's where you get the sense of like, oh, this guy would be a good hand.
Vince Vaughn? Maybe Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn would be cool.
Yeah.
Who are some other people that are just like, man, this is a guy that is like
be a good hang,
grounded?
Who's that?
Barack Obama.
Oh.
I'd do a hang with him.
I mean, he went to Mark Maron's garage.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. That's right. On that.
It's like, where's the interview? It's in a garage in Glendale. Sign me up.
Now, did he do that when he was sitting president at that time? He did it while he was the president, right?
Yeah.
See, that's...
Can you imagine the cavalcade of cars that would show up in that neighborhood in Glendale?
Oh, sure.
Just black cars.
I'm surprised Mark didn't make a mention of like all the Secret Service guys like parked in his driveway or something like that.
It was probably one of the most secure locations for him.
I mean, we don't
profile.
get presidents on our show of the United States. We get presidents of like the American Federation of Musicians and stuff on our show.
Yet.
What's up, Dave Pomeroy? No, it's anything is possible in this crazy life.
I got to put together a Rush show at Berklee.
Really?
Rush. Where's the place? So the cafeteria in Berklee, what you could do is kind of like a library card, check it out like a performance space after hours.
Wow.
So we would do what was called CAF shows. You know,
Like Fame.
Exactly.
Hot lunch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's two that I MD'd and put together. It was Queen and Rush. And both of them I had Alex Lacamore on.
Nice.
And, you know, the Rush one, he did second guitar, keys, and BGVs. On Queen, he did primarily vocals and sang lead, like he did the Bowie part on Under Pressure. And years later, all of a sudden you watch his career explode with Lin-Manuel kind of in together.
Yeah.
And so much to the point that he just made a post. I just saw it like last week. And he was like, oh, you know, me and the wife are going to London or whatever. He went and had dinner with Geddy Lee.
Oh, wow.
So him and Geddy are kind of
besties.
Like, I guess, or whatever.
Geddy's very approachable too, as is Alex, I think.
Alex is great. I met Geddy and Alex in 2002.
Yeah.
And this is right because I brokered the meeting because I grew up listening to Rush as well. But I got signed to Atlantic Records in 2001. And at that time, Rush was signed to Atlantic. A friend of mine at the studio at Ocean Way said, you know what? Do you want to? This is before paid meet and greets and everything else. The only time you did meet and greets at that time was you knew somebody radio contest or you knew somebody like that. And somebody at the studio is like, hey, let me type up a letter and send it off to the management and see what we can do for you. Cool. Yeah. And sure enough, I got the meet and greet with them. And I had just gotten the record deal. I just signed my first record deal.
Was this Eve to Adam?
This was
Hot Action
Cop. Yeah.
Nice.
And I met Geddy and Alex, posted the photo, and I said, hey guys, I just got signed to Atlantic. Any advice you could offer to me? And Alex just kind of looked at me. And he's like, you got signed to Atlantic Records. Yeah, I did. You're screwed.
My band.
and then he could see that, I guess my cheeks just went flush, like, what? And he's like, man, I'm just kidding, whatever. And then he's like, Ged, you got any advice? And he's like, get a good lawyer.
Amazing.
Like, what was that supposed to mean?
Yeah.
So like Hot Action Cop,
Yes.
I remember for a while, our old friend Ryan Hoyle played with you guys, right? But was he the original drummer?
No, he was not. He subbed in.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned, I haven't talked to Ryan in a hot minute.
Many years.
Yeah.
Many years.
So this was either right around the time or right before he moved to LA.
Yeah.
And we had to sub out because our original drummer, I think his wife's about to give birth to a kid or their second kid or whatever. And he came in and subbed. So we had Ryan for a weekend.
So what was it like being an assigned band on Atlantic Records in the early aughts?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was very educational.
What were the current bands at the time? Was it like the Eve Sixes and the Fuel and?
Well, on our division of our label, which is Lava Atlantic, which was Jason Flom's imprint, Jason Flom, Andy Karp, it was us, Simple Plan, Sugar Ray, Matchbox 20, Kid Rock.
Wow.
But then you had things like the Blue Man Group put out a record through them, and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Nice. These were all the people on our label.
I mean, that Matchbox 20 record, I was kicking it yesterday with Pete Coleman, our engineer, at Fozzie's here in Spring Hill, as a local watering hole.
Yeah.
And, Matchbox 20, their first hit comes on the radio. It's 1995. That's a long time ago, man.
It was a long time ago.
Holy.
It did the early aughts was a long time ago.
They are a
Classic
legacy rock band now.
Yes.
Yeah, classic rock.
Classic rock.
Okay, so Jim, do you have a hot take on this? Like, what would you consider, at what point, how many years before it becomes a a rocker thing becomes classic, where it gets that label?
I think it's generational 20.
20. Okay, so 20s. Yeah, that makes sense.
20 years. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and also during our time, because Hot Action Cop was known as being a rap rock band, there was obviously your Limp Bizkits and those kind of bands as well.
Nice. And so then after Hot Action Cop, how many years before you did the Eve to Adam thing?
Eve to Adam didn't roll around until 2011, 12.
Because didn't you guys play the Whiskey when I was living in Los Angeles?
Yeah, you were there.
And
Yeah.
and your bus was parked on Sunset Boulevard across the street.
Yeah.
And then I made the mistake of coming to party with you guys. And the next day was a big hangover.
Well, I'm laughing because a lot of things happened that night, and that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Let me put it to you this way: like, you left, and I remember still vividly. I still have a very solid memory of being on stage at the Whiskey and looking, and you were sitting in the balcony. I remember still. I can look and go like, "There's Rich. He's right there. Just lean." And Rich is like on that railing, just kind of just rocking out, just checking out the show. And I'm like, God, I hope we're not sucking right now. So,
That was great.
but I remember the whole thing is, of course, we wanted to play rock stars, and we went to party at the Rainbow afterwards. I think at this point, you might have already gone. You might have left.
Yeah.
But our whole goal was to go meet Lemmy. Because
Was he there?
Well, no, he wasn't. He was under the weather. But it's so funny because all the staff there like kind of knew why we were. It's like, yeah, you're looking for Lemmy. We already know he's not well. He's just at home.
Because his home was about 30 feet away behind
Yeah, it's right there.
the Rainbow.
But you know who we wound up closing down the Rainbow with?
Billy Gibbons.
Not quite as coolish.
Ricky Rackman.
No.
Eddie Van Halen.
No. Yeah.
Let's see.
You're never going to get this.
This is fun. This
is not a musician.
Is he a host?
No.
Is he like one of the guys from the metal show or something? Okay.
No.
Go
No.
for it.
Eddie Trunk.
Ron Jeremy.
Awesome.
Kid you not. I'm not making that up.
He was there quite a bit.
Yes, he was. Apparently he was there. We closed down the bar with Ron Jeremy.
Ron's still alive, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I actually worked with his niece.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever read his biography book? His
I have not.
book?
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure it's probably like just
Got tons of ups and downs.
like I'm sure. Yeah. The only conversations we had were very middle of the road common stuff. Like I so badly wanted to kind of ask him about his career a little bit, but
Yeah.
we never went there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like before you had to be thin and shave your body hair.
Yeah. No, he didn't care.
Yeah, the hedgehog.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
El Chupacabra.
So he, did you feel like you had to, use some hand sanitizer?
Maybe
after that,
so,
or-
yeah. Yeah, I literally, when we walked out and our bus is parked right there, we actually I can't believe I'm about to say this, but good night, Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
And he
Can
literally,
you point me to the nearest car wash that I can walk through? No.
yeah, exactly. He literally, we watched him walk out into the darkness of Sunset Boulevard. This is literally like a movie. He just walked and just disappeared into the darkness.
He and his 3 legs.
Yeah, exactly.
He probably lived close by as well.
I think he did. My understanding is he did.
Yeah. Now you have Dominican and Puerto Rican roots.
Yes.
Why music? Why the bass? Is your musical family?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not by profession.
Yeah.
My entire family love the arts and love music and always have and are very driven by music. But professionally, no. My dad's a retired surgeon. Like he went to medical school at an early age and he's very business minded and that's all good.
Yeah.
But my entire family, both sides, had a passion for the arts. Always. So even if I didn't choose this as a profession, my mom made it a mandate because I'm the oldest of my siblings. And my mom's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you into oil painting classes, into piano lessons. We're going to do, and I'm going to do it with you. We're going to do the arts.
Wow.
Because she wanted to have what she called like a well-rounded person.
Education, yeah.
Which is great. It's like, yeah, we can do the academics and that's important, but we want you to have all the aspects, all the things.
That's so cool.
And it just, my mom called it. She says it. She's like, I called it. It's like, early on, she's like, within a few years, like before I was even like 10 years old, she's like, you're going to be a musician. And she called it. She was right.
Yeah. So when the bass? When?
The bass occurred later, and later meaning like middle school, high school, really.
Yeah.
Well, I started with piano lessons. I did horn stuff in middle school, high school for band and whatnot. But I think I really fell in love with the sound of the instrument right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And my approach for it was one of those things where like, well, look, I already understood music, even as a kid. It's like, all right, well, it's 4 open strings and it's chromatic. How hard could it be? then you find out it's not like, even with drums, it's like, well, you hit this and you hit that. How hard could it be?
Yeah.
And then you realize there's a lot more to it than that. But the thing with bass is once I took some Christmas money and bought myself a bass or whatever, and it was just like almost immediate. It's like, oh, this is my voice. You know how it is like as musicians, we can dabble in other things. We understand like what people do and whatever. But there's this thing about the conduit of us as a musician going like, no, this is my voice.
Yeah.
This is who, this is how I contribute and this is how I express myself.
Yeah.
That's how it was for me in the mouth harp.
There you go. See, gown, gown, gown.
Did you start with the mouth harp?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
It's because it didn't happen.
Oh, gotcha. But I like how you sold it. You sold it like a total straight man.
What's
I want to be Jim when I grow up.
What's the secret? What's the secret to comedy?
Timing. Delivered.
Timing. Amazing. So were you working after Berklee? Did you kick it in Boston for a while, or did you?
I did. I stayed not long, like a year, because I think it was more out of a necessity of like, oh crap, what do I do now? And money and everything else. And it was just like, okay, I graduated. I'm here. I know people here. I have some gigs here, but I got to find a job, and I did. And so I stuck around for a little bit. And it wasn't until another drummer friend of mine I went to school with comes to my apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is right kind of just north of Harvard, and said, hey, I'm moving to Nashville. You want to buy my furniture? And then he's like, wait a minute. You want to be a studio musician? That's one of your goals. You should really look at Nashville. And he in 2 hours convinced me.
Nice.
And
before even checking it out.
Yeah. Well, we flew down. That was early that year. And then July of that year, we flew down. He's like, come with me to like, he was scoping a place to live. And a couple of our mutual buddies who still live here to this day, like are here, we're already here.
Yeah.
And we scoped it out, and it didn't take long. I was like, no, I got to make this happen.
Because you and I didn't meet right away in 1997.
No.
It happened after. Like, I feel like I've known you forever and ever and ever, but we have a similar story in the sense that we took everything that came our way. Mm-hmm. We crashed parties. We did all the right things we were supposed to do, trying to get into the right circles, creating opportunities, answering the call for opportunities. What was that first opportunity for you? Were you playing around town? Did you do Lower Broadway? What was your first road gig?
I never did Lower Broadway, and that wasn't like, it was part of me. It wasn't like I was poo-pooing it or anything. It just worked out. And honestly, it was like, it's a lot of work. I mean, I have a lot of respect for those guys because the repertoire that they know is off the chain.
And just holding your pee for so long.
Yeah, and that it didn't used to be that way. Back in the day, you could actually take a break. Yeah, it was a typical like, here you're going to do 3 hours and you're going to take a 10-minute break every hour. Okay, cool, or 5 or whatever. Now it's 4 hours, no breaks, and I even friends of mine like, how do you take a break? I'm like, I hope to hell that one of my buddies who plays my instrument is there so I can go pee.
I say, if you're a drummer, he's like, please do an acoustic song.
Exactly right.
It's not just beer in those bottles.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Those aren't pillows.
Those aren't pillows.
Exactly. My first opportunity came about. It's hard because I just kind of jumped. Actually, no, correction. Here it is. My first opportunity was within 48 hours, and this I have to thank.
That's incredible.
A friend of mine who's still friends of mine to this day, another bass player, Tommy McDonald.
Hey, what's Tommy? Yeah.
So that guy's great, but I didn't have any connections prior other than a couple fellow Berklee guys who beat me to the punch here by a few months. Yeah. And there was a merch guy, this is going to sound weird, like who was friends with a guy who was friends with my stepmom's dad, and right down the line or whatever. And he's been a merch guy since the 70s. Actually went out with Rush at one point. So There you go. There's your Rush connection again. But he was out with
slinging that cotton.
But he was, I think he was working for Richards and Sutherland, the big merch company.
Big one.
And he was working with David Lee Murphy at the time.
Dust on the bottle.
Exactly. So, he's like, I was told, hey, contact this guy's name's Carson. Contact him, call him up, here's his number. That way it's another person in town. So I called him, left him a voicemail. About, 10 hours later, whatever. He's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, nothing. He's like, all right, you're coming to see this band with me. And so we went and saw Laura Darling, who is a writer, and she was playing, and Tommy McDonald was playing bass.
Nice.
So we went to the thing, we met, Tommy and I met, and Tommy's like, oh, are you looking for a gig? And I'm like, duh. Yeah. And he literally like sitting down and he motions to the stage, like, do you want this gig? I'm like, well, sure. Why? He's like, well, I have to go out with David Lee Murphy, so I need somebody to cover this. And that's how I was off to the races.
I'm quitting right now. It's all yours.
Pretty much. It's yours.
But I mean, that is an example of the, the Keo Stroud system, which is like, be out and about.
Really, could we have not gone through this entire interview without mentioning Keo Stroud?
I just think it's such a smart, because the first 15 years in Nashville, I would go out every single night as part of like a business model. It's like, you gotta go. You gotta go to the writers' nights. You gotta go to the showcases. You gotta see the regional bands that come through. You gotta be pressing the flesh. And here he is 20-something years in, and he just continues to do it. And he's always top of mind. And I'm like, Keo, great business model.
Exactly.
No,
he's really good at that. And it is right. There is a certain thing about it, but we talk about the dirty word networking.
Yeah.
And to me, and I've told this now that, we're on this side of the coin and now where people are asking us for advice and whatever. And I say, hey, don't approach it. Don't think of it as networking. Just get out there and just meet people.
But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But they just don't want to use the word.
But there's a different approach. Well, I've seen it happen with some
business people use it.
Exactly.
Business people are going out that network.
Exactly. Well, you come out, it's the thing of, and I'm sure this has happened to probably both of you, where somebody comes to you, is like, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I've done this, this, and this, and they lead with their resume.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good networking.
Yeah, exactly. But they're kind of told that that's what you have to do. No, that's
for speed dating. Yeah.
I know,
what I mean? But the main thing is to find a commonality with the person and find out what interests them.
Despite your success in all this, Rich, I'm gonna challenge you on that.
I'm
gonna say that it's actually finding what problem do you solve.
But that's more of a hard promosexual pitch.
No, it's basically,
you're like, what's your problem, and I can solve it.
Well, not only that, it's what's your problem? I want to listen, and I want to find out what is the biggest thing you're dealing with, and if it's something that I could accommodate, or I know somebody that could accommodate it. I just want to be a resource for you. How can I help you out?
Being a connector. Well, like, for example, these things can kind of happen in an organic way. And Jim and I go back and forth on this. So, if you have a website and you have all sorts of products and services, do you have a cart or a page where you list every product and services and you put the price tag on there and what it involves?
Are you talking about merch or services?
Services, right?
Okay.
So for me, like, I got a call the other day, and this guy's like, "Hey, I'm a superintendent of the school district, and there's going to be 300 guests, and we're looking for a keynote speaker and 2027 in April." I'm like, well, I don't know what my schedule is, but most likely we are only touring June to October. So most likely it's not a problem. I already live in Nashville. You're saving airfare, you're saving hotel. I'll come. He goes, well, we already know that we want you. We just got to talk about budget and stuff. And then we get into the weeds. We're talking about details. And then I'm like, I said, now also, I can MC the entire event for you. I could do my keynote speech. And then since the event has a music-centric theme, I can put together an all-star band for you. And they're like, wow, we didn't know you could do all that. So should these services be listed on my website?
Yes.
See, Jim says.
Well, yes. And you're right about that, because there is that, I guess there's got to be an art to it. And I'm obviously still figuring it out myself or whatever, but making people realize what it is that you do. And one of the things, like for me, the biggest thing that people weren't aware of was playing upright bass.
Very few guys do that in this town.
Well, the assumption is that you do one or the other, not both.
Yeah.
And like, obviously it's not just me. There's a batch of us that double, and some of those guys like are monster doublers, as we say, double on upright and electric or whatever. But the fact that you still have to find that way of, hey, I want to make you aware that I do this.
Yeah.
It's like the best example I have from years ago was, I track out of the house as well as we all do. We all do remote recording, and I got hired to do 2 upright tracks. Okay. So got them done. All's well. Oh, I didn't take a picture. I didn't post. Should I?
Did it happen?
Yeah, exactly. If you didn't post, it didn't happen.
Like, we're really good. Like, when you and I work a lot together with Chris Condon, Chris Condon is nice enough to call us. What's up, Chris?
He just called,
Chris
by
should
the way.
actually be a guest on the show.
Should we call him back?
And
yeah, you should probably at some point. We'll get him on the air.
He'll put like his week of sessions on Facebook, and he'll do a nice mashup of all these photos, and he puts a picture of all the individual players.
That's great.
And he tags them. It's
great.
Smart.
Yeah. He's really good about it. And it's one of those things where it does make the hill of beans different. Sometimes we talk
about
personal branding, promosexuality, whatever you want to call it. All
What's
that
up,
stuff.
Kevin Murphy?
But
he's not a fan of that concept.
No. And honestly, look, if it's to me, it's like, I feel like sometimes it might not be, but it feels disingenuous. Like we don't want to it comes from a place of ego. I'm trying to sell you, look how good I am. I don't want to just be that guy, but at the same time, how else do you make people aware of what you do?
Right.
But I also
documenting
some of our heroes that I would never think that would do that are now on the game. Where like,
oh my gosh,
like some of my heroes are like every time they do a recording session or teach a lesson or do a clinic, that there is a photo and a video.
Yep. Well, look at
how do you pivot that to make it valuable for those watching though? So instead of like, I get what you're saying,
sure,
where it's a braggadocio kind of approach. Braggadocio.
Like a light brag.
Yeah, humble brag.
It's like a light marinara.
What if you could just do a video of like, we do the Fast Five or a fun little trivia question. Be like, hey man, we're here with so-and-so. What do you think about, what's your favorite food? And it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Facebrag.com.
Exactly.
Not even face brag, but it's just like, just fun little stuff.
Yeah, that could be a way to do that where it's more engaging, because if you think of it from the concept of what we now have, content creators and influencers, kind of a dirty word too, where they, like anything else, like you're making a movie, you're making a TV, you're making some sort of program, it's the engagement factor of like making the connection, making the, it's, I know that they're selling something, but this is entertaining to me.
It's got to be entertaining.
It's got to be entertaining.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that, Chris Condon comes to mind just because he's so consistent about doing that. Mm-hmm. And I like it because you and I are always in the photos and, I like being in photos. So what the heck? I don't think that's a secret.
It's funny because we did a session with him not that long ago over at Southern Ground. And I remember even in the middle of like he's, waiting for people to do their punches before he comes back to do like his overdub. And he just, while he puts the guitar down real quick and just goes, and gets all. And we all know what's happening. So we all go, hey, you smile at the camera.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we get our best side on there. So interesting because we're all over the place, our roots, the things we've done, our commonalities. But what was some of the first bands that you got excited about? It's like for Jim and I, it was like, for me, it was like the Police and Van Halen. Mm-hmm. For him, it was like Van Halen, Rush, Dream Theater kind of a thing.
Well, my first bands were Huey Lewis and the News, Van Halen.
Solid.
Yes. Ghostbusters soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Man, that's kind of, Jim's kind of in that same wheelhouse as me. A lot of those things do apply. For me, like I always tell people my earliest influences were movie soundtracks, and I'm talking about the orchestral. So your John Williams, your Alan Silvestri, your Jerry Goldsmith, those guys, Howard Shore, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
Those were like my first things because that was like, well, and even being like, playing bowing upright, like even before that, like even before I even dabbled in that thing, it was just something that viscerally hit me. And going to a movie, it was just like the soundtrack hit me. And my parents were like uber supportive because they're like, oh, it's kind of like classical music, but it's filtered through that lens.
Well, without that music, you'd have that Star Wars conclusion on the first movie that they made on the internet. That they removed the music and put the sound effects in.
Oh, I got to see that. I've not seen
You've
that.
not seen it?
I've not seen it, but I can imagine.
All you hear is like the music's completely taken out, and they put like reverb effects on their footsteps.
Oh,
and then you hear somebody in the background going, you know what I mean?
Somebody farts.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly. That's a big thing. So that's some of the first thing as me that wasn't just something that my parents liked or that got me personally excited.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can branch into like, rock and roll and everything else.
Like I first think about you guys, first thing that comes to mind is that you and I tell people I'm a rock drummer that has an overeducation in jazz and classical, but I'm a rock drummer. I feel like it's a lot of times you're a rock bass player. Sure. Like we have that, we love our eighth notes and we lock so good on that. But is there something we wouldn't know about? Did you go through like a James phase, or
of course
all the James Brown stuff, or like what are some secret things that you just love and admire that are in the well that we wouldn't think?
Well, that's it. Well, and again, but I would venture to guess I'd challenge you to ask any other bass player, and there's going to be that element as well. Yeah, when we found James Jamerson specifically, or anything in Motown, Duck Dunn or any of those guys, it's like, ooh. This is like a warm and fuzzy, and it's cool because it's like, oh, that's what makes you dance. You know, kind of. So, obviously it started with that, with the James Brown and some like disco-y kind of stuff, Louis Johnson, that kind of thing. But also then it kind of went into some other areas as well that were kind of adjacent. So, I just had one at the top of my head and I completely blanked, but
I wonder who the first bass player was in disco that did the dee-dup, 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 the octave thing.
God, I feel like I should know this, and I feel like people are like adding at me right now, listening to this, going like, "You should know this." And
we'll
like,
take it out.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I blank, but
I don't know, Stu.
Yeah,
I don't know either. But I mean,
yeah, exactly. There's an evolution. There's the warm and fuzzies about that, and the funk, and then here was the one I was thinking of too, where it was, and this is kind of going into high school, getting into college time, but Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power.
Oh yeah,
because it was like take the Jamerson thing, which has the cool syncopations, but gives you the warm and fuzzies, and give it another technical layer as well.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but he knew how to make those. It's like, but try to do that and make it feel good. That's hard.
Who are the guys that played with a pick really well?
There's a lot of rock dudes that play well with a pick. And that's something that, again, that was a skill set I had to develop after the fact out of necessity. But now I use it I do pick on country sessions sometimes,
If it's appropriate, yeah.
If it's appropriate. And sometimes it just is,
Now,
is popping in the bass?
I wish.
Is it the slapper?
I was going to say popping and slapping. That's a technique. Is it a technique that
it's like budik?
Gets really rusty if you don't use it a lot?
It can be. It depends on the person, because there's, and everybody, even within that, people have their own technique within slapping and popping, where they're positioning their hands is how they do it or whatever. I mean, I mentioned Louis Johnson earlier, who he does a lot of stuff, but then he wound up playing on Michael Jackson records, and he wasn't slapping and popping on that.
Yeah.
But, Brothers Johnson, he's slapping the bejesus out of it.
When were you in Boston again?
In the 90s, early mid-90s.
Early mid-90s?
Yeah.
So did you ever hear of any of the New York bands at all?
No, the one New York band, I had a gig. I used to work at a club called the Paradise when I was up in college. I interned there, and then they wound up hiring me for a bit doing sound, or being one of the sound guys there. And the Paradise is the equivalent of Exit In is here.
Nice.
It's been around the same amount of time, both national and local acts. The one New York band that I actually heard that I never heard before, and heard their show and went like, I'm getting their record immediately, is called the Bogmen.
Interesting.
They're still around. I follow them, and I saw they're still posting, but they're very a New York centric band.
There's a band that I came up with in the 90s when I was with Connecticut White Bread. There was another band we used to play with a lot called Jam Syndicate, and I bring them up from time to time.
Yes.
Amazing band, ahead of their time.
Okay.
They just never really had their due, but the bass player was phenomenal. Alessandro Nardone, Sandy Nardone.
Gotcha.
That rings a bell, but...
It does not, but I'm definitely going to check it out for sure. So thanks for the tip on that.
Yeah.
I love checking out new stuff. Or stuff that
most
I'm
of
not
their stuff. I don't think it's on Spotify or anything. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's nothing more painful than bad popping and slapping, though.
Oh, there is, because there is the danger of overplaying, like anything else. It's like it's a technique, and you can easily overplay on slapping and popping.
But doing it out of time.
Well, that's a big no.
Yeah.
Well, you can't slap it. You got to stroke it. I'll see myself out.
And
thank you. There you go. It's like, how quiet did the room get? That was that.
Amazing.
Everything should be played in time. I mean, that's just like, I don't care how simple or anything. That's the key thing that separates like the kids from the grown-ups.
Yeah.
It's definitely like, feel something like Abe Laboriel Sr., who's a big influence on me being a bass player, his whole mantra was always like, yeah, you could do that. And he's got all these techniques too, and he's like, I don't care. You can do that. You just do whatever you want. Just for the love of God, feel something.
Yeah.
And make it feel.
Yeah.
Here's an observation on something recent that was in the news with a bass player and a professional drummer, both professionals. What is your take on the whole Primus thing, finding a drummer, being that, are you a Les Claypool guy?
I am, yeah. I saw Les live in 91 open for Rush.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was
on the Roll the Bones tour.
Yes, it was. And I saw that show twice in Florida. I was still in Florida before college. But I remember seeing that. But already he had made waves just because his technique was unorthodox, especially in more, shall I say, commercial.
Bass taking the lead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're not a commercial band per se, but they got the notoriety. So they got in that thing. So obviously we had to see that. But that was the first time I saw them. And you want to talk about a guy, again, unorthodox technique or a different technique or whatever. His timing is impeccable.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, because they just let him fly. He starts a song just slapping and popping himself, and you're like,
yeah,
Tim Herb Alexander and those guys, or Larry Lalonde are just like, we don't need a count off. We know where it's at. He just said it, and it's perfect. His timing's great.
It's amazing. Am I right in saying that this is almost like they're making the audition? It's almost like a publicity junket. It's almost like they're making it like national news. Primus is looking for a new drummer.
Yeah.
Kind of like, who did that?
Dream Theater did it.
Dream Theater made
a whole documentary out of it.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Are you a big John Mayung guy as well?
I do like John Mayung. Again, very different thing or whatever. It's not. It's right. It's the right thing for that band. It's not the right thing for everything.
But you remember when Smashing Pumpkins also hired the kid from McDonald's for a drummer? The kid was working at McDonald's, and after Jimmy Chamberlain left,
right.
Billy Corgan hired a kid that was working at McDonald's to be the new drummer in Smashing Pumpkins. Do you remember that, Jim? It was also
I don't remember that.
That was also national news. So it's actually kind of a smart thing because all these drummers are coming out of the woodwork. Some are very underground and unknown drummers, and some are very established, and some are household names.
Yep.
They're all auditioning.
Dude, we have a bunch of mutual friends that sent in an audition tape.
What the heck? Why not?
We mentioned Keo earlier. He did it.
Did he? Somebody's going to get the gig. Why not you?
Exactly.
Somebody got the gig.
Who was it?
He went with somebody he had experience with. Of
course.
Brian Brain Mancia.
Brain.
But he's already done the gig.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's like, to me, when Tim quit before this whole audition thing, I'm like, surely he's going to be the new drummer because he's already been the drummer.
Yeah.
So
That's
why do that whole thing and then just make a phone call to somebody you know?
I think I got two reasons on that. One, publicity. You mentioned it earlier. The other thing is it's an excuse going like, oh, I never heard of this guy. It's good. I'm discovering new talent.
Mining talent.
So that way, even though you might not take him into your main gig, you might be able to partition them off to another gig.
I'd be curious to interview Les about that and kind of really get into the nitty gritty and say, was it because this guy had time in the trenches and that kind of gritty upbringing, maybe played in a garage band? Because there's a lot of people that did apply for the gig who are Instagram drummers,
of course,
who have come up through that route.
There's some Nepo babies that audition
too. They're not exactly seasoned.
No, they're not. And we've seen, and now we do live in the day and age where we've seen some of those people getting those gigs.
Yeah.
There's a batch of them, and drums specifically, but in other avenues as well, where they found them on Instagram because they had a cajillion followers or something like that.
Right. But that doesn't make them good.
No, not necessarily. But sometimes, and I might be thinking this more like a conspiracy theory, but it might be one of those situations where they're thinking, hey, we can get some extra publicity because they already have built-in publicity.
Okay, Alex Jones.
Yeah. Wow. Dang. Wow. Okay.
So actually, funny that you say that because there is a drummer out there, and I think he's been featured on Drumeo and stuff like that. I can't remember his name, but I believe he's Spanish or Italian. But he's just got these he's got all the chops, very clinical, speed off the charts, and he does renditions. Like he did Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, Spanish guy.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember his name, but he's one of these guys who. Yeah, dude, you can overplay the crap out of it, but you just completely remove the soul of that song.
Yeah.
You ripped it right out. And he got murdered in the comments.
So many chops.
But it's for what?
So many chops.
For what?
Well, he's making a great living because he's selling mugs, hats, hoodies.
Yeah, he is.
There's that.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the younger folks now, they see that as a viable avenue of occupation.
And they're like, wow, I could just set up cameras and lighting in my space, come down here, create content, sell product, run a business, have the notoriety, get the free gear. They don't have to jump on a tour bus. They don't have to jump into a van. They don't have to sleep at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
With the one with the pool in the middle that's really noisy with the kids, it smells like chlorine. They don't have to do any of that.
Rich, it's funny because you're seeing a lot of ideas that, quite frankly, you and I thought of.
Yes.
We tried one.
Which one?
The drumming roulette idea. Remember that years ago? Where I'd just throw songs at you?
Oh, yeah.
And you had to play them?
But my thing was,
right?
You could play at them, but I am just such a stickler for meticulousness and learning a song.
You're not an ideal candidate to be in the seat.
Yeah.
You're a host. But the whole idea of it.
I'll host it. Yeah.
You should totally host it.
Okay.
That's your friend.
But
you definitely want Kevin Murphy on the panel, right?
Oh, gosh.
Because he's the Simon,
great.
right?
He would. Yeah.
Well, and also, look, and Kevin is we know Kevin as a person, but as a player, he's also
amazing.
He's amazing.
Awesome.
He's worth the salt. And it's it's one of those guys that's he says things that we wish we could say. He's just like, whatever.
He does not care.
He doesn't care.
He's giving damn his busted.
But at the same time, it's just like, there's so many other people that try to pull that and don't have the goods to back it up. And I go, well, Kevin, you're not wrong. And you're
really good.
You're an amazing player. And I love hanging and playing with that guy whenever I get that opportunity.
Well, years ago, I remember we were doing a double bill. He's playing with Josh Grayson, and he was just that sound check. He's just like doing a one-handed roll on this hand, and then he did a one-handed roll between his right hand and his right foot. And I'm like, oh my God, you're crazy, buddy. Yeah. You're gonna get fired. Don't use that.
Well, he's also the first guy to go like, he knows enough not to, he knows when and where to do it. That's another thing.
He pushes the envelope.
Yeah. But that's also that skill set and whatever I think is what makes you a good, not just good drummer, a good musician. Yeah. It's like you got that skill. That's great, but you know not to do that.
Well, you've been on a million sessions with a million cats. I mean, you're working with everybody from, like on one day you might be working with me, another day you're working with Dan Needham, another day you're working with Andy Hull. What are some of the skills?
We didn't address something.
What?
I was down a little rabbit trail.
Oh, shoot. Well, come back to me. Let's finish this drumming roulette thing.
The drumming roulette. But you see,
I apologize, guys.
That's all right. Drummio has kind of taken that concept where they get these big name drummers sitting in. And then they took Mike Portnoy and he played a bunch of his stuff. They interviewed him and then they threw like a Tool song at him.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
I have seen those.
And for 45 minutes, he sat there learning it.
Well, they threw a couple and I think it's a very entertaining concept because you're going to take a drummer who's known for a certain genre and throw the complete opposite genre and go, try this.
Right.
And sometimes it's like the results, the ones that I've seen is like, oh, that's not the right part, but that's a cool approach.
It's amazing to watch because they're just willing to put themselves out there. Mm-hmm. They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that they do.
I actually have a clinic coming up in Albany and hope all the flights make it and everything with all this winter get 'em.
Snowmageddon.
Winter Snowmageddon. Yeah.
Snowmageddon.
So anyways, if I make it there and everything works great, it's going to be one of my little one-man shows. And the host is a great friend of mine, Bobby Angeletta, who's a drummer, and he's got a rock band that he's had forever. He's been playing with these guys forever. And he's going to have his rock band there. And I am going to chart out on the spot one of their songs I've never heard and play it with the band.
Nice.
And fantastic. That was his idea.
That's a great idea.
Can you get that videoed while you're doing it?
I have another friend, Stan Z. What's up, Stan?
He completely ignores me.
Stan is Stan Z.
He's your friend.
Is a great drummer, but he's a videographer, like a professional videographer.
Is that a new shirt?
And he's going to come out and film it. So, Jim, I'm answering your question. Stan Z is going to come out and film
Jim
it.
McCarthy at Jim McCarthy
the first rule of podcasting and interviewing is listening. What were you saying?
Anyways, okay, so go back to your this television show that in the making.
Well, we had the idea.
Wait a minute. Should we talk about this?
I don't think we should. I think we got to keep it under wraps.
Okay,
it's our little idea. We could talk to Louis.
Copyright first.
Yeah.
Who did you ask for?
Luis.
Yeah. Okay.
Because one time he said, my name is not Lois. Because I spelled it wrong.
I said Luis.
Yeah, there you go. He said, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
But one time I
spelled
spelled
the fact that you're calling me out on this. That's great.
I'm used to it. I get it all the time.
One time I spelled it Louis by accident. And you're like, well, first of all, I'm not Lois.
Yeah. Well, I get that at Starbucks all the time. So I'm used to like,
you know what I get? Mitch.
Mitch Redmond.
Mitch Redmond.
God, I love that. That's I'm putting that in my phone now.
Yes.
I don't really go to Starbucks, so I mean, I don't know what I would get. Probably dick.
You want a dark dick roast?
I have a valid question. Yeah. Again, that's Jim at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. All your hate.
You never go to Starbucks?
Now we return to the show after the fact he talks about his friendship with Diddy. Okay.
Right.
Yes, continue. So
yeah. Go back to your idea.
This time. Are we going to talk about it or no?
Well, here's the thing. I think that if we talk about any of these ideas,
they could be stolen.
Totally.
Yeah, probably valid. Keep it under wraps. That way, it just doesn't get stolen. So,
it's an idea worth pursuing, though.
Basically, I'm the host. We know Kevin Murphy is going to be on the panel.
There's going to be a panel.
Oh, this is glorious.
Of sorts.
I whatever you're selling, sign me up.
Yeah.
You just said panel. You Kevin Murphy. I'm in.
He could be a guest panelist.
Louis
can certainly
as the non-drummer representing
but you have a rhythmic sensibility. So I mean,
big time.
I'd love to. Sure, if that's the case, I'm in.
So with the Dominican roots,
yes.
Did you ever have like
Ga, 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 ga.
So I should tell everybody, and this goes for you too, Jim. I love the fact you mentioned panels. You just made me flash back to a panel you and I were on back in like 2008, Belmont. Oh, so Rich and I were on a panel, and when we were going around the horn, introducing ourselves and who we'd work with, trying to do the resume thing or whatever, I mentioned at that time, because I'd worked with Jimmy O'Neill.
Yeah.
Every time I mentioned a name that I had worked with or was working with, Rich immediately started mouthing a drum part from one of their things.
There is no Arizona.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did. I was like, Jamie O'Neill, and you start doing that. I'm like, yeah, that song. It was, and it's so funny because the students are just like, arms crossed, just like, all right, get on with it.
Yeah, just entitled Belmont kids. Come on, kids.
It's like, lighten up, people. Sorry, where were we? I digress.
Rich is world class at that.
Oh, he's
you know what I mean? You can verbalize and vocalize drum parts like nobody's business.
Oh, he's really good at it. I mean, I admire most drummers I know are good at it, but they have their own version of it. And Rich's version, like, is very, you can first of all understand exactly what he's talking about.
Right.
But it's Rich doing it. So again, the comedy timing thing, it's like you just have to kind of giggle a little bit. So.
The first time he told me, he's like, oh yeah, Falling Rocks. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, sneakers in a dryer.
Sneakers in a dryer.
Yeah, see, that kind of stuff.
I love it when it slows down. And
the best was Pat Boone, Debbie Boone.
Oh,
that's
how you buy a house, kids.
Bucket of fish.
But we also have kind of like a quick language where I'm like, hey, because a lot of times it ain't rocket science. We're playing straight eighth, like a ballad or something mid-tempo. And I'm like, hey, intro, bing, ka, bing, bing, ka. First verse, bing, ka, bing, ka, bing, ka, bing, bing, ka. Pre-chorus, bing, ka, bing, bing, ka. And then when we get to the chorus, 4 on the floor. And he's like, got it. He writes it in, boom, we're done.
Yeah. And that works. And it really does work that way. And it sounds silly if you're on the outside looking in, but honestly, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Then we just saved a lot of time me trying to figure out your kick drum pattern.
Did you do that with other drummers?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
I've had to do that with some other drummers that you can tell it's like fishing. And then it's like, when it's like, hey man, I got an idea. How about this? And I go,
what kick drum pattern are you going to play?
Yeah. Boom, smack, boom, boom, smack.
Yeah.
Just how about boom, smack, boom, boom, smack. And this one, just boom, smack, and we're good.
Yeah.
There was one time you called them the money beats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching an episode of The Office, and Dwight actually talks about, him being a beat farmer. He says, we don't take the bad beats. It's like the bad beats we put down. We put the beats out and by the road that are that attract the most attention, something along the lines of that. He goes, those are our money beats. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, we got to pull that clip.
I was gonna say, you have to use that as a sample.
And I should put it on my website.
You should totally do that. Yeah. Let's just get a trademark before this episode comes out.
Okay, let's do that, Jim. Help me out. Because
making friends everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of which, you were asking me about the Latino stuff.
Yes.
But I digress. Yes, so there was a big portion of that, and I was going to reference it earlier, but obviously growing up in that household, and that was very present. So present, not president. Sorry. English not
well,
so
that's
good.
On your mind right now. It's on everyone's mind.
Exactly. We're talking about, So it's one of those things where, when I first moved to town, I got involved with a salsa band pretty quickly. Like there was a thing, and it was one of those. Have I played it professionally before at that point? No, but I knew enough because of osmosis and just part of the thing of learning a song. The majority of that's listening. That's the key thing is listening. Like if more than anything else than figuring out the notes, figuring out your part. If you listen to something repetitively, you already in your brain kind of already know what you have to do on your instrument. So a lot of those Latin rhythms were natural to me just because I'd heard it for so long.
Immersion
in that, and specifically with like, we said Dominican, like it's merengue, which is kind of like, thank you. It's very much like a 4 on the floor on steroids, and and that's it. So it was like that part's easy because everybody talks about Latino music and the clave and that little pushed 4 feel, especially for bass, like hitting the downbeat, like an 8th note before the actual downbeat, that kind of stuff. So all that stuff, again, that was my lesson as a musician to like, listen. Was
that here in Nashville with Lalo Davila, his band?
I did play with Lalo, but that was after that. Yeah. This gig was beforehand. This was in the early aughts. Yeah. And this was there was a place in Printer's Alley called Club Caliente.
Oh.
And it's now where the underground places, that British pub is. Oh. And that was run by a couple from Colombia who are dance instructors.
Nice.
And they hired me and a bunch of people. Like we made a salsa band and had a weekly gig there.
Awesome.
Nice. And it was great because it built the repertoire. My reading chops got better, and just playing with 4 percussionists was always a blast.
Oh my God. Yeah. Cause it's like, cause when we play Latin rhythms on a drum set, Jim, we're basically impersonating four people. But if you have the four, so you got a conguero, you got a bongero, you got a guy that's playing maybe the shekere, and a guy playing, or maybe cowbell.
Yeah.
And then you got a guy playing timbales, and it's all broken up.
You know who's actually a drummer who has got a lot of Cuban influence, and it comes out in his music? Take a wild guess. Least expected.
He's
Alfredo Reyes Jr.
No, it's not.
We love Wally.
You wouldn't even think he actually is Cuban, but does not really have a typical Cuban name. It's almost an Italian name. It kind of is an Italian name.
Well, I'm thinking of one guy in particular, but he's a bass player, and he's a rock bass player. But
is it somebody who's been on our show?
No, this guy is
he's a drummer,
renowned heavy metal, speed metal drummer.
Dave Lombardo.
Yep.
There you
ding,
go.
Ding, ding.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because you could actually hear the Cuban influence.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He'll do that kind of stuff, like over like, he'll be like, blah, 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 ga, 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 ga.
Yeah. So he's got all that to add to the rest. See, that's the thing. It's like, listen. The things incorporate everything. You get cool crap like that.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And then I'm sure you had a jazz period, like a straight ahead jazz period. And now the funny thing is, if I had to choose between, like, I love playing big band, but if I had to choose between playing straight ahead small group bebop or 70s, 80s, 90s fusion, I'm always going towards fusion.
Why is that?
I love swing, but I'm not as crazy about playing small group swing as I am big band.
Oh, because it's a bigger thing and there's more, I guess, more for you to do per se. More different things.
Something so sexy and powerful about that amount of people working collectively. You know, April in Paris, la, 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 blah, 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 just incredible.
Exactly. I ever tell you about the time I used to get really upset at the haters you used to get on YouTube?
Yeah.
Because they thought all you could do was that.
Yeah.
Like the country stuff.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, you have not seen a percentage of what this guy can do.
But in their defense, what have I done to show the world I can do it? I haven't done it. I haven't put out my jazz fusion record.
But sometimes
I'm not in a jazz group.
But I've seen something of you. It's like an old VHS tape where you're doing like fusion stuff.
Oh yeah,
you were 1 o'clock, weren't you?
Yeah.
You see, there you go. I mean, that alone, like that carries weight. And what I'm talking about is the whole thing. When you say, "Oh, you're 1 o'clock," it means you're in the 1 o'clock band at North Texas State, which is the heavy jazz, like cream of the crop guys. So it's one of those things where that's almost like a calling card amongst the musical community. It's like that's why I just said it now. It's like you're 1 o'clock.
But most of the guys go on to play jazz professionally.
Oh, of course they do.
And I'm going to play country and western.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Bissonette was, right?
Yeah. And then when you think of Bissonette, he's great swinger, small, great, covers all the bases. But, when I think of Greg, I think about David Lee Roth.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you saw him.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like, we always associate, and people do this, and they want to pigeonhole you naturally.
Yeah.
And it's just like, with you, it's like the country thing, because they saw you probably with Aldine.
Yeah.
It's like, but he does other things too. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
And ask whoever, like, this person might know me from this and this person might know me from that. It's like, oh, I didn't realize you did, the first time I walked into the Christmas tour rehearsal, Lindsay Miller, who was also 1 o'clock, she knew about me. We knew each other. We never worked before, but she's like, the motion was like, she came like, I didn't realize you did this, meaning, I'm air bassing upright bass.
Taking it for a walk.
Because she's seen me do like session work for a country artist or whatever. And it's like, no, or she saw me with a rock thing. It's like, I think all of us, basically, you can take a panel of everybody, working musicians nowadays, and most everybody what I consider overqualified.
Yeah.
Meaning that, and they're not one-trick ponies. Like, they have the skill sets. Obviously, some people are like, well, I don't do Latin jazz as well as this guy. Sure. Yeah. But they're not just one-trick ponies.
It's hard to keep everything all polished up and equally sharp.
Yeah. I mean, how long will it take you to snap back into full fusion swing mode?
Oh, just practice the material a couple afternoons and make sure that I get the sticks in my hands.
Is it like riding a bike, kind of, or?
Yeah.
Is it?
I think so.
Really?
Well, I mean, look, a good musician is a good musician is a good musician. Even if there's an idiom or a genre style that you're not familiar with, your instrument, the approach. So it would be a matter of, hey, I just need to study up. I need to listen. I need to do this. And then figure it out,
Is this something that you do in preparation for gigs? For me to learn stuff, I will chart it out, because by charting it out, it helps me learn it. And it helps me create a mental snapshot in my mind. I could see the chart in my mind's eye. Then the other thing that I do over the course of however much time I have leading up to the gig, I will do the immersion thing. So, commuting, listening to the material, working out, listening to the material, cleaning the house, listening to the material. So it's in my DNA in a deep way.
Very much. 100%. 110%.
Yes.
It's everything. I mean, that is, in the last, I kind of came off touring in 2020 and I'd been session guy, but I've subbed in a bunch.
Yeah.
So anytime there's a sub opportunity, that's exactly what it is. Like I told you earlier about going for a walk. It's just like throw in the earbuds, go for a walk, and just create a playlist. Now that we can create playlists, just like, okay, they sent me a set list and I don't have recordings, but I have stuff off of the streaming services, and just make your playlist.
Put them in order.
Let it run.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And yeah, it's just literally listening and listening. And when it comes time to, I have to sit at home and with my instrument on to play, it's like, I already know this is in the key of G. It sounds like G. I'm in the ballpark. It's that much. I did that specifically. I subbed in, speaking of Kevin Murphy, I subbed in for John Party for about a month in 21. And it was one of those, like, I remember going for a walk, earbuds, just on repeat the set.
Immersion.
Did that with Tom Kiefer, Immersion. Here's the set. All right, cool. That's all on streaming here. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, we had Stairtoe on. You guys were in the Guess Who together.
Oh, yeah. See, there was another one. That was the same thing. It was like when I got called in for that, because that was thanks to both Stairtoe and Troy Luccketta, who called me for that.
Yeah.
Even though Troy's like kind of also sub guy for that gig. And same thing. It was just like, okay, we know, like, and it's one of those, like, I went through the list in Immersion, like I knew American Woman, obviously, but I didn't realize, like, oh, I do know some of their stuff. I know No Sugar Tonight. I know No Time. Some of these other things that were like kind of hits. And These Eyes, you know, and I completely forgot.
These Eyes,
which, by the way, deceptively hard for both drums and bass.
Yeah,
like Gary Peterson, the original drummer from The Guess Who, like called me out. Like, he's the nicest guy in the world. And he knows his stuff, and he's coming up on 80, and he's been drumming since he was a kid.
Kidding me?
Yeah, and he still he plays double kick at like 77, 78.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. But he was the first one to go like, "Hey, man, you're not playing the feel right." He's like, and I literally, like, because you think of that doon doo 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 is the bass line. You can hear it, but you don't think about how it swings. And it literally was like, I'm playing it right. He's like, you're not swinging hard enough for it. And I literally went and listened. And about the third listen, I'm like, oh, that's what he's talking about.
You mean the subdivision between bagadak?
Yeah, it's almost like we think doon doo 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 doon, and it's bat doo ba da. It's like there's a swing, so me even verbalizing it that way puts me, yeah, exactly, puts you in that mindset, even though like the notes are timing in the same spot, but it's how you get there, the swing.
Yeah.
You know what I was playing the other night was Chicago.
There you go.
Not that, the Peter Cetera hits.
Which one?
Oh, so all the
watch, that's kind of
the David Foster stuff.
David Foster stuff,
and that stuff is slow. It's
that's a skill in itself.
With the gated reverb stuff and all that space.
I'm just flashing back to the last 15, 16, 17, 18 years of this. Of like him, like every time he's like, oh yeah. It's like if anything he wants to verbalize, he can definitely verbalize a snare with a ton of reverb.
That's right. Now you mentioned earlier voiceover.
Yes.
For me, or have you done it?
No, I've dabbled in it.
Because you've got a good voice, and you have the ham factor.
Okay.
It's a natural ham.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I got to dabble in it was at Berklee. Was like there was a project, and it's like, hey, I like your voice. Can you come do a thing? And it turned into a commercial spot for Amtrak.
Nice.
So I go, why don't you call Amtrak? So I got to do that. And I thought about it, but then I always feel like, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm not an effective communicator sometimes.
No, you're very articulate.
So I don't think I am. I don't see myself.
Far more than I am.
That is a lie.
I think I stammer a lot.
No, I don't think you do, because honestly, it's like, then I see and hear people like you and go like, yeah, I can't do that.
Really?
That's like me trying to write a song, and I work with so many world-class songwriters. I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that.
But can I brag on Luis?
Yeah.
He was honored with being able to do a musician spotlight at the Country Music Hall of Fame, which is basically an hour-long presentation, and it's open. And it's on at the Country Music Hall of Fame. Now, when you think about the Country Music Hall of Fame, the clientele coming through, there are people that live in Nashville. There are people that are not in the music business, and there are also people that are just straight up tourists, and they can come once they pay their fee to get in the hall. They can go to this spotlight, and so there's this beautiful theater. It's packed. Luis invites me, and he does this basically a rundown of his career. He talks about these instruments that he played, his influence, his training growing up, his first opportunities, got to play these and you were so articulate.
Oh, thank you.
It was very entertaining.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. And honestly, that's one example where in the middle of it, I didn't feel articulate at all.
It was great.
Like I literally had the moment of like, you know,
get over that.
I'm trying. Yeah. I know it's a process, but even like walking out and in the middle of my presentation, I'm going, this is why we'll suck at stand up, because they're speaking of articulate and confidence, because, you know, you get the introduction, they give you the whole rundown. Here's your career, welcome, you know, whatever. And I walk out, applause, whatever. And then it's dead quiet. And then the mic's on you and you're like, so good afternoon.
You did great.
Yeah. So I played bass. Okay, I'm gonna play something, you know, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
You know, and then looking in the eyes and having people like Rich and some other, like some of my, Ariana Kapp was there as well, who's a well-known bass educator online.
Yeah.
She does the Scott's bass lessons and everything, and watching them, me and some other, my peers being in the audience. And I'm just like, oh crap.
No, you did great. There was very few ums. It was so perfectly put together. I hate to be rude. I'm just looking at my phone because Jim's got a hard escape hatch time. We're going to do the favorite color.
Blue, or sorry, royal blue specifically.
We've been getting a lot of that, right, buddy?
Well, it was blue. It was just blue the last time.
Yeah. So it's very much deep royal blue.
Well,
I
to
like
be fair,
that. Almost purple.
You've had time to think about these questions too.
I have.
Favorite drink?
Alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Is it like Cuban coffee?
What's your go-to right now?
I like a LaCroix sparkling water kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll occasionally, if I'm a air quote bad boy, it'll be Diet Coke.
Yeah.
You know, and then as far as an alcoholic drink, I'm always a sucker at a nice quiet place for an old fashioned.
Nice.
Dude, alcoholic drink, buddy. Evan Williams eggnog.
Oh, that's good.
That is insanely good.
That is like saying, I'm going to quote Dave Attell. Remember him?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is the quote he said about eggnog. He's like, it's like, yeah, eggnog. I want to get drunk, but I really want pancakes.
It is like pancake batter. But this Evan Williams spiked eggnog is the most incredible, because I don't know if you guys know this, but Jim also, he produces the Small Town podcast for
That's right. Try that in a small town.
Yeah.
Try it, yeah.
So,
try that in a smalltown.com.
They were touting the beauty of the Evan Williams drink. And then
they did like 10 minutes on it.
As a Christmas gift, Jim got me a bottle of it.
Oh, fantastic.
And it did not last long. It was incredible.
I'm sure it's really
like,
tasty.
It's drinking Alfredo sauce pretty much.
It is. But a really good favorite food or dish.
That's a tough one because that varies much like musical taste. Depends on the day. But I mean,
At the moment,
ooh, I am a sucker for like a pasta with a pesto sauce and grilled chicken.
Yeah, there you go.
Like usually maybe fettuccine, but sometimes I'm kind of thinking more like a penne.
Yeah, and with the pine nuts in there too.
Oh, the pine nuts is
little lemon.
Lemon. So good.
Amazing. Hey, so we're going to change this question. Favorite actress?
Oh gosh. What are these stipulations on this? Favorite, just skill set?
Either the most talented or the most sexy, or
there is, and you put me on the spot. I'm blanking, and I'll remember this at 3:00 in the morning. But there is one actress who's, at least for me, like just drop dead gorgeous. But that aside, her skill set, she is freaking amazing. And I remember a few actors saying like, no, she's got the goods. She is amazing. Redhead, probably close to our age, pretty close. And it escapes me right now. It'll come to me later.
Was she on Mad Men?
She had huge trucks.
Yes, I think she was.
Christina Hendricks.
Was that Christina Hendricks? Yes, I think that's it. Yes.
You said redhead, and I'm like, there's not a lot. There's Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore's great too.
Yeah.
No, she's great, but Christina, like, assets. Yeah, she does. But you know, she's really obviously really pretty and whatever. But as the skill goes, like she's got it in spades. But also, I've read interviews where there's many like top tier, like legendary actors go like, oh, she's the
She's
bomb.
got the whole package.
She's a great thespian.
She works. I love that. And at the moment, what would be a favorite song?
Again, tough on that because it changes. But honestly, it's like favorite song. It's tough. I mean, I've been going kind of revisiting Jamiroquai recently.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so good, and they got a new album coming out. Yeah,
Gaduba.
yeah.
Gaduba. I said Banaba.
But even like some of the other stuff that's not like that hit or whatever. It's just like you go down that catalog. Automaton is their last record that came out like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's like the whole record front to back. I can just put it on and I'm happy.
Haven't heard that, but that Baduba, which has got the built-in swing, reminds me of that first Maroon 5 record.
Oh yeah, same thing.
Oh, that was really, really good. Man, Jim, you ask your question, buddy.
Insanity.
Gaduba.
And the audience is bored now.
Anyways.
You ever hear the band Wigwam?
Yes.
They're really good.
Yeah.
They're so refreshing.
Wigwam?
Wigwam.
Is it
if
like
you watch The Peacemaker with John Cena, they did the music for the intro.
Oh, right.
And it's one of the most quirky intros, hilarious.
John Cena has done really well in expanding his brand.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Have you, in the same token, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention another album, but are you familiar with the one album band Toy Matinee from the early 90s?
Oh, yeah, with Sheryl Crow?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, Sheryl Crow wound up being a touring version of them for a hot minute.
Yes.
But it was her boyfriend at the time who also helped co-write like the Tuesday Night Music Club stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I mean, that record, that's Patrick Leonard, the producer, who wound up, that's why, and one of my biggest influences, Guy Pratt on bass. And Guy got to play on the Madonna record, Like a Prayer, because Patrick Leonard was involved and he produced that record. And that record, you talk about power pop like stuff, so good.
Toy Matinee. You guys heard it here first. Yeah. Jim, you want to ask your tribute band question?
So,
yes.
Well, you just gave it away.
Sorry, guys. And action.
That's fine. So you have to, okay. So what if you had to pick up a tribute band and play the rest of your life in? What would it be?
That I had to personally play. I mean,
you have to do it every day.
I'm going to say Jamiroquai because I'm on that kick right now. Yeah, because first of all, the skill set, it's fun music to play, but it's a challenging thing in bass wise. And it's just kind of one of those things where you find that happy medium of, oh, the instrument I play, what I have to do brings a challenge to it, but it's so much fun to do.
Yeah, but think about when you're like in your 70s, your fingers hurt and you're like, I just want to play Panama. I'd
love to play. I'd love to be in a Van Halen band too. But I mean, Van Halen, Rush.
There's so many. My thing's Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis would be great. Actually, I did get approached one time, almost jokingly, from a drummer buddy of ours about doing a Huey Lewis and the News tribute band. Mm-hmm. I'm like, call me. I'm here. Yeah, it's great songs.
It is. They are fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
That's. You gotta remember, you gotta play it every day.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
So, Rich,
you make that sound like it's a bad thing. I have to play my instrument for every day for the rest of my life. Oh, darn. Twist my arm.
No, I know.
Are you going to be, you going hunting after this now or?
Oh, because of my camouflage?
Sure. Again, that's Jim.
Hey, man. I just wanted to pull this sucker out. I hope there's not a lot of comments on the YouTubes.
Hey, Bruce Banner called. He wants his shirt back.
Ouch. Hey, so Luis, what is there, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way? Do you have your own .com?
Yeah, I do.
Now, will you spell your last name for?
Yeah, I will. So I do have a .com. I don't really keep it up as much as I should, but you can go there. It's LUIS ESP as in Peter, AILLAT as in Thomas.com.
Luis Espaillat.com. Right. It's just so fun to say.
But, obviously more often than not, the social media stuff. So Instagram is Luis Bass, LUISBASS. Luis Espaillat Bass altogether, BASS is my Facebook page. Instagram, Twitter's the same, I think. I do have a TikTok, even though I just saw the news that might go away.
Yeah.
Do you have like a central website? Did you mention?
Yeah, LuisEspaillat.com.
Everything's there.
All the links are there too.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. And I will say, just really quick in closing, that I really appreciate your commitment to music education as well. You're passionate about it. You and I have done the thing at the School of Rock at the Ryman many years, and the kids love you, and you're great working with the kids. And same with our friend Michael Sterto and Angie and Kelly McCrite. We love them so much. This was so much fun. We could talk for hours and hours.
Yeah, of course. Well, we've also got history ourselves. We didn't get into the stuff that we've worked on together.
What have we done?
He got to come back.
Well, I'd be glad to. Yeah, absolutely.
What have we done over the last 20 years? So much.
Well, the Red Door. We've done. No, we've actually like legitimately played on records, and we played. Remember, like I was having a good little happy moment. There was a Canadian artist that his name was Jay Allen.
Yeah.
I remembered it.
Yeah.
Murray Pulver produced from Canada, who's in Dark Walker and also Crash Test Dummies. He produced that, and we got to do that.
Yep.
And that was fun. So we've gotten to do some really cool stuff.
Well, anytime I walk into a room and I see you on a recording session, I'm like, it's going to be a fun day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of people can do the thing, but the thing that makes it fun is those soft skills, that interpersonal, and I just always have a great time with you.
Well, ditto, same thing with you. And it's also one of those things where like playing with you, just even personality, great. But even from a professional standpoint, I'm like, we have nothing to worry about here. Rich is going to put the one right where it needs to be.
Boom.
Yeah,
I love
exactly. And we know where it's going to go. And I can I always make sure one of my things is like with most drummers, but definitely with Rich is like, if I'm in a room and I have a choice, I'm like, put me in the room with the drums. I have isolation cans, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so I have a visual because drummers, Rich included, they have what I call poker tells.
Yeah.
So they'll be playing, doing the grooving along or whatever. And then all of a sudden you see maybe that right shoulder comes up and he's like, oh, he's about to do something.
Spagoom.
Boom. And I got it. It's like, how'd you know I was going to do that? It's like, you telegraphed it.
I was about to do Pat Boone, Debbie Boone, right into the ride
Exactly.
symbol, right to the bell of the ride. Jim, thanks for all of your time and talent. You are so funny.
I got to say.
With the world as our witness, I just feel so grateful in 2025 that I have so many amazing friends. But it's a short list of people who would, broken down on the side of the road, you're pulling up. Luis would pull up, you would pull up, and I appreciate it.
I got to say, Luis, when you first came in, I love the fact that you just came in. We were recording the other podcast. I'm serious. I'm not being facetious. That you kind of crashed it and you sat down. The moment I saw you, I instantly liked you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's
absolutely
for what it's worth.
Isn't it nice to be likable?
It is nice to be liked. You can only do so much, but even Mother Teresa had her haters.
Now here's the thing. Courtney's coming to pick me up. He's got to meet Courtney. Let's see what kind of read she gets.
Ooh, that would be great because Jim's wife is incredibly empathic.
Yeah, good luck.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, wish me luck. Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't my intention to crash the Latch podcast. I thought I was going to sneak in and be off to the corner.
I loved it.
I got pulled in.
So I loved it.
Loved every bit of it. Yeah. So all I could say is thank you for doing this and making the trip to Spring Hill. It was long overdue. Congratulations on everything. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. And I'm just proud to call you my friend.
Ditto, man. Absolutely. It's an honor. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, buddy.
I really do.
Everybody check out LuisEspaillat.com. Send him a DM. He'll get back to you right away. And for all the listeners, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review. It helps people find the podcast. And Jim would be very mad at me if I didn't promote some of my wares, like my book, Crash Course for Success, which you can get because Jeff Bezos will lick a stamp and will send it to your house.
That's right.
Also, there's a brand new hardcover book, which is called Making It in Country Music, an insider's look at the industry. And if you're a drummer and you like to go rat-tat-tat, but you want to keep your marriage, you want to keep your relationship with your neighbors or your band, you can get this 3-sided Made in America Pro Logic Rich Redmond signature practice pad. And we'll see you next time.
This has been The Rich Redmond Show. Subscribe, rate, and follow along at richredmond.com/podcasts.